the double up bucks. So just to start with some stats on how farmers market SNAP acceptance has grown. In 2013, nationally, $17 million were processed through farmers markets and direct market farmers. So that's what FM and DMF stands for. And $5,000 of purchases were done in South Dakota, and in the 7 or 8 year time until 2020, so just recently, that grew to be 33 million nationally and 13,000 in South Dakota, so over double in the last 7 years, which is wonderful and probably is a testament to what some of you have done in your markets. So of course, the benefits being increased market sales and revenue potential of more customers, and then greater accessibility of those customers to healthy food. To kind of talk about what is the structure of SNAP and getting the readers and really working through this, there's 3 kind of top-down organizations. And so the first is the USDA Food and Nutrition Service. And so they manage the SNAP program and provide all the oversight. It's coming from them. And then as far as farmers markets applying for SNAP to be an eligible vendor, the application is housed through USDFNS. At the South Dakota level, in each state, there's a state agency that administers the program. So South Dakota, it's Department of Social Services, and they would be who provides card readers for you to use. And then the state chooses a state EBT contractor. So really all of the work that you do in a day-to-day level with the card readers and the EBT processes, those would be worked out through the state EBT contractor, and that is a yearly contract with the state, so that could change, but right now it's the FIS. And I think when I was talking to Jana Peterson, who will reference with her contact information in a bit, she works with DSS. But I think there's just a couple options for those contractors in South Dakota, so it might change, but not a ton of variability likely there. So the simple steps to get started accepting SNAP at a farmer's market would be to apply online through Food and Nutrition Services. This is not done through the state, it's done through the federal system. So the state can see who's applied, who's active, and who has an FNS number, and that applies to farmers markets, direct market farmers, but even all retail also. And then the next step would be to obtain a card reader from the state, and then to manage the sales with the EBT contractor. So to walk through a little bit of the application, this would be the site that you go to, so USDA Food and Nutrition Services. And I can provide this link in the chat. But this is where you'll find the first step is to get a USDA account, and there's a link there to register for that. And then the second step takes you into the SNAP application, which you would click on this link here. And FNS has also developed a step-by-step guide for filling out the application. So this is really handy to look at before launching into it, because it tells you everything that you're going to need. And so then when you get started, you can do it quicker. And so here is the link in the chat now for the step-by-step guide. Some basic things first. A lot of just accepting their requirements, and then it gets into the information that you'll need. So this can be helpful to look through. It might say store for some of these things, but most of it's applicable to farmers markets. So your market number, a supporting organization that's assisting the market if applicable. A lot of these things are going to be a little touch and go. So some of them are applying to you, and some of them might not be, but really when you get into the application, I think that'll be a little bit more clear than it is here on this step-by-step guide. And even as we go down here, so address, mailing address, kind of typical contact information about the market. And then, so here, the ownership type, a lot of the questions that follow kind of depend on the the structure of your market and what the ownership level is. So things like an employer identification number, your organizational name and address, contact information. If you're a government agency or a publicly owned corporation, responsible officials for LLCs, nonprofits, partnerships. And so there are some different variations based off of how you structure your farmers market. Social security number for certain ownership types. Again, I think that some of you have maybe experienced that with your markets. Any past history with crimes, violence, such as things like that. And that continues to go on into what types of foods you sell. So there's kind of a list of yes or no food inventory, and that's kind of, I think, just for them to know that you're selling healthy foods, which most market, pretty much any market should qualify. And again, just some more basic information. So I will jump back over here. To get the card readers from the state, DSS has about 5 right now, free wireless card readers from a grant in the past. And so those are available if you call or email and have set up your FNS account. Then you can receive one of those for free, but they are EBT only, so they're not going to accept debit or credit purchases, just SNAP EBT. And the fee for that, the reader is free, so you save significant cost. I think even up to like $1,200 they can cost. So you're saving on that, but there is a monthly fee of $45 for the processing, and that gets paid to the EBT contractor, but only in months that there's activity. So if you're calculating your entire year's expenses and your market only operates during 6 months, then you would calculate 45 times 6 instead of 45 times 12 for the whole year. The state does have manual vouchers available for backup. A lot of times these are used maybe at retail locations where they still are using wired landline terminals. And so that's the other option that is available for free, but doesn't usually work out too well when you're outside. So these wireless ones can be a better option, but there are, if for some reason you'd like to use a wired landline, that is available. And then the manual ones can be used if something isn't working. And so you would just fill out the same information that gets plugged into the card or the reader, how much it is, what the customer's information is, and then you would call the state EBT contractor and they would clear those funds manually versus with the card swipe. And this is the contact information there for Shanna. A cool alternative is this Market Link website. So I think it's the National Farmers Market Nutrition Program, or one of the major organizations in USDA has kind of partnered with them to provide grants. So really, this can be an option that you might want to even start with before doing your application through the federal and the state levels, because this is going to provide everything that you need. I believe, as far as I can tell, all of the expenses would be covered, even the $45 fee. So Market Link program guides you through applying for the grant program. So that's the first step in this route. You apply for the grant program first, and then which covers the reader, processing, and app fees. So that's new. So apply, and then you apply to get the FNS number. So that launches you into the same application that we just looked at from USDA FNS. So the first step here is just to apply for the grant and then apply for the SNAP FNS number, but similar steps there. And then to complete an EBT processing application to set up your EBT and SNAP payment account. So in this case, the Novodia group kind of takes the form of that EBT contractor and the person that you would contact. So then you would set up your equipment, which includes credit and debit capabilities in the same EBT reader. So it sounds like that's more of an option. if you choose to have that multi-capability, and then start accepting SNAP and electronic sales. So this system here, where is a phone-based system. So you would use your own phone, or maybe if the market had a phone, but to apply, there's still a reader component, but it is something just to swipe on your phone device. So the devices are going to look different. This would provide a device that goes to your phone, and then it would cover the fees for that, for the processing, and for the app that's associated with that device. Oops. As opposed to a system that's more like this one that the state would provide. And then, of course, at the market, you can choose a few different ways to implement the SNAP process. So script would be paper currencies that the market develops, or tokens such as the ones in the picture, where the person could come and purchase those and then use that to spend at the market. It gets into a little bit of, oh, what did they do with it if they end up not using those? So a refund process would need to be in place, or are you going to let those script carry over into the next market, maybe the next weekend or into the next year, kind of thinking about how you would manage those situations if choosing to use script. And then other ideas or options, I believe some of this has been implemented at Vermilion from what I can tell, at least maybe 5 or 6 years ago. So the receipt method would be having a piece of paper that the customers that are using SNAP benefits can carry with them across the market to track all of the sales and the exact amount that's going to be. So the farmer or the vendor would write down the amount that they're going to buy. And then the first option would be for the customer to carry those items along with them with their receipt paper and all of the totals from across the market, and then provide it to the market manager, whoever is manning the station with the EBT reader, to pay. Or then the second option would be to just walk around with the paper and continue adding all of the different purchases that they want to make, take that to pay, and then go back to the vendors to pick up the items if there's a concern that they're going to walk out with the items without paying. So, okay, and with that, I will step back and let Sam talk a bit about Double Up Bucks.
Yeah, so Double Up Food Bucks is a national model for healthy food incentives. It's active in 28 states and growing. Double Up Dakota Bucks is South Dakota and North Dakota's pilot program that we implemented starting in the fall of 2019. And we weren't really able to fully implement because we all know what happened in the spring of 2020. So we actually got an extension on that and are still working on finishing out the implementation process. But Double Up matches Supplemental Nutrition Assistance Program, or SNAP, dollars spent on fresh fruits and vegetables. It's really a win-win for more healthy food for families and better business for farmers, and a boost for the local economies. Can you go to the next slide? So how we've done it: SDSU Extension and NDSU Extension partnered to implement this pilot program in North and South Dakota in tribal communities. We implemented in both farmers markets and grocery stores. So since this is a farmers market meeting, we'll focus on how we did it in the farmers markets. And I'm going to focus on Lake Andes because that's the market that I was most involved in. So first of all, to participate in the program, the market has to be able to accept EBT. Mary Jo was and still is the market's rockstar manager. Mary Jo got trained on how to work the machine and then went through the training with us, SDSU Extension, on kind of how to implement and record everything for our grant requirements. I think you can go to the next one. The next steps were to kind of train the vendors. We use one EBT machine for the whole farmers market. So when a customer wants to use their SNAP dollars to purchase items, they, Mary Jo, correct me if I'm wrong on this process, but kind of how Anna just explained, they determine how much they will spend, and then we run their card for that amount. And then they get a script, which is just like the paper amount equivalent to what they need, and they give it to the vendors for their items. And then when the market is over for the day, the vendors submit their tokens to the manager, and she reimburses them with cash for the amount submitted. We work through or with the ROC's office for our EBT machine. So that money from the EBT goes to ROC's, and then they reimburse the farmers market. And I believe that comes in on like a monthly basis or so. How Double Up works then is very similar. When they purchase their fresh produce using their SNAP dollars, they then get a dollar for dollar match on that purchase. And then they can use that match that day or at a later time. Their SNAP dollars have to be spent that day, but they can use their Double Up bucks. We had it until the end of the season. I mean, it's pretty basic process. Mary Jo, do you have anything to add to that?
No, I think that pretty much covers it. We do use script. We have cards that are either $1 or $5. And the $10, they can only get a maximum of $10 of credit towards Double Up bucks. Correct, Sam? So if they spend $20 for SNAP, they still only get $10 for Double Up bucks.
Yeah, and that really just depends on how you want to do it at your own market. That's just how we've done it. I put a link in the chat to Fair Food Network, and it kind of goes over some more information, and they have a whole toolkit. Like I said, we are grant funded right now, and it's very specific on the locations. And so we don't have funding to implement in other locations at the moment. But if it's something that your market is wanting to look into, there are other grants available that your market could apply for, or another group within your community could apply for. I will say at the market, depending on your SNAP sales, you're probably not going to have a huge amount of Double Up reimbursement. I think in 2020, we had like $250 at the Lake Andes Farmers Market. Does that sound correct?
Yes, I think so.
So it's not a huge dollar amount, but it does kind of draw people in a little bit more too.
I have a question for you guys. Did you find that your Double Up the match was all spent?
No, I don't think so. People would either lose it or forget that they had it. So no.
Yeah, if they don't spend it that day, just right away, yeah, it seems like it gets lost, or they don't keep track of where it went or whatever. So
That's been your experience too, hasn't it, Barb?
Yes, there's always a little bit of a difference between what we give out and what is redeemed. Although it is a good motivator for bringing people back to the market. There are a lot of people that will come back. And I also noticed that because we double $20 per market day, and there are a lot of people that will come when their monthly benefits renew, and they'll get their they'll put 20 on their card and get 40 in tokens. And then they do that knowing that their SNAP benefits won't extend through the month for them. But basically they come, they get their tokens, and then they have that to shop with through the month.
I've seen some parents too who get the double up bucks and then hand their children who are with them, okay, here's $1 for you, go buy some fresh fruit or vegetables, which is always a good, I mean, I think that's one of the highlights of the thing of the program, is that you get kids eating things and picking out things, and cherry tomatoes or whatever that they can eat right there.
That is a great point, Mary Jo. And we see a bump up in our SNAP use during July, when the last couple summers we've had kids tokens, and so we've gotten a grant or a sponsorship to be able to give kids that come to the market, here's $2, go pick out a cucumber, tomato, what have you. And it really helps. It makes those tokens so that everyone's using the tokens. It's accessible to everybody, and everybody's shopping with them. And so it's just a lift for both the kids and the families. You can really see it.
Really, the last thing that I see, I didn't even show this slide, but we just wanted to open it up to see what other people's experiences have been with maybe accepting SNAP or doing double up too. So thanks for sharing what you already have. If anyone has questions for Samurai or for each other, go ahead. And if not, I think I might ask just a couple questions of those who have done it.
Looks like Rajni's got her hand raised.
Okay.
Yeah, thanks. And I'll put the camera on. So I love the idea of it. I love what you guys were saying. And I mean, having kids go pick out produce and all that sounds awesome. And I'm still kind of wondering, especially when you're saying some of the tokens aren't even getting used, the amount of time. I guess my question is, how much administrative time does it take, to manage that and do all the additional accounting, because, pretty much already I'm a volunteer manager, and I'm trying to assess if the extra time that it's gonna, and the extra expense is honestly gonna fill a need that's beyond just a nice feeling.
I would open that question up to Mary Jo or Barb if they would be willing to answer, because I'm not really the boots on the ground person that is doing that work.
Well, I can just say that our market's not very big. And so I think maybe the administrative time takes me a half an hour to do after the market, just to figure out because we keep track of it so that I can send a sheet to Sam. And so I keep a sheet of the sales that we've had, and so I know what money's coming back from SNAP. So yeah, ours doesn't take very long. Imagine if your market is bigger, it probably would take you more time than that, but it's, you can run the SNAP machine will run a total for the day, and you can match that up with your total, and it's pretty easy.
I would agree. I don't feel like it's horribly time consuming. It would be hard for me to give an amount because it merges, our different programs kind of overlap in the time that I spend reimbursing vendors and so forth. I will say that the first year I invested a lot more time than I had the years following. That getting it all set up and figuring out my system and getting, improving my system so that it ran smoothly and some of those things, and then just getting the word out. The first year I really underestimated how much time it would take, and then in years since then it's been much more manageable.
Thanks, you guys. One more question about that though. So do you, because I don't normally have any, we don't have a cash box. I don't do anything as a manager with cash. So I'm imagining that I'm gonna have to take on that, like having cash that I'm gonna be receiving cash, and then I have to pay out the vendors at the end of each market, right?
My vendors, I supplied them all with an envelope and a tracking sheet that came from Fair Food Network. And so, as they have enough that's worth reimbursement, they may not turn it into me every week, just, some of them once a month or so. They just hand me the envelope and I take it home, and during the week, I'll, double check their counting and write a check and give it to them the following Saturday.
Yeah, I pay them each day right at the end of the market. They have they've got their coupons that they bring back to me. We count them out together. We have a Lake Andes Food and Wellness Council has a checking account. And so we write the check from that. And so I write them a check each week. So they've got and I think that helps with keeping the amount of book work I'm doing down to just that half hour after I get done with the market each day. So it's not so, but of course, again, we're small, which, probably compared to Barb's, we're probably pretty small compared to you. So it might be easier to do that the bigger you are. So that's.
All right, thank you, ladies.
I see Rose has joined us, and as I recall, Rose, you take EBT also, don't you?
We used to take EBT, and I don't know if you guys remember me talking about how our